All right, on today's show, we have Dan Schepleng. He is the president and creative director of Kapowza, which is a creative agency based in Baltimore, Maryland. And let me tell you a little bit about Dan. Dan was born in Annapolis, Maryland. He grew up in Pasadena, not the California one, but the Maryland Pasadena. And he's been working in creative ever since he was in his mid-teens, actually since he was 15. And his first job was a commercial editor at a small DC agency. Dan also began his filmmaking career as a composer and then moved into the director's chair, writing and directing commercials for Kapowza. He has served in nearly every facet of the advertising industry. And on the real estate side, Kapowza has been recognized with many awards for creativity, including an Emmy from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences for the Blue Box television commercial for Northrop Realty. Northrop Realty, by the way, is the #1 real estate team in the entire country, and they hire Kapowza. So we're so excited to have Dan on. Last year, Northrop, which is a Long and Foster company, was named #1 specialty brokerage in the nation for team-owned brokerages. So we thought, what a great opportunity to bring Dan on and learn some of the secrets of what these top teams are doing with respect to marketing and branding. But their non-traditional advertising, guided by Dan, continues to play a key role in their growth. Now, you can check out Dan's work and learn more about Kapowza by visiting their website, which is kapowza.co. So again, and let me spell that for you. It's kapowza.co, kapowza.co. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't need to say anything more. You said it all, so I'll see you later.
I said it all. And we're done.
We're done.
I am a marketing person myself. I've been in marketing ever since I graduated college, which I didn't go to school for marketing, but I have been in that industry. My sister is also a branding person. And so this has been in my blood ever since I got out of school, same with my sister. And I love talking to marketing people because this is such an important part of any business. And on the real estate side, of course, understanding your market and knowing how to speak to your market is just so critical, and something that just about every realtor I know is always looking to do better. So we're excited to have you.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about how, I spoke a little bit about how you got involved, but tell us a little bit about, how Kapowza got started and how you got involved.
Well, I think most good things that have happened to me kind of just happened by accident. I'm not really like people that have these, plans and all these things. I've been very fortunate. I just kind of fell into some things. My mom worked at an ad agency in DC, and they needed someone to edit some of their commercials. They weren't really known for commercials, and I happened to make like music videos for fun on the side with they had an agency camera, a little like an XL2, and I used to shoot little music videos that made absolutely no sense. And my mom, being supportive, sent the music videos to their creative director, and they were like, well, he can edit a thing. Why don't we hire him? And looking back at it, I was just thinking about, can you imagine, like, some of these are like national accounts, like, oh, I'm just going to hire this 15-year-old to edit my stuff because I saw one music video. I start to question the creative direction of that company now that I'm a little bit more into it. And so, yeah, it was like $400 a pop of editing just videos and commercials, some conference videos. And I remember I was like, oh man, 14, 15, I don't even have a car. $400 a pop to edit a thing. I'm rich.
Good money.
So yeah, it's good money for anybody. And so I took that money and decided I was a rich person and I needed to play golf. And so I blew like all the stuff on golf clubs and then like played twice. And so that was my one experience being wealthy. It did work for me. And now here we are. And fast forward a little bit, I was working at a designer at another agency, and started just going freelance with some of my friends. Started companies, and I would just be their marketing, their creative person. So I'd do like the design and do some video stuff, and working with like no budgets. Like I remember cutting commercials together using stock footage and just having a ball with it. And it just grew out of freelance, and then. I got too busy to handle the clients that I had, and hired a part-time designer And then from there, I hired now a partner, Sean Sutherland, our new business guy. And, you know, we're almost 9 people now, coming up on 6 years. So yeah, it just grew kind of organically, kind of, you know, almost by mistake, in a sense. We just wanted to do good work. Like I just wanted to do really good work. And I didn't have the portfolio to prove that. So like no one was going to hire me. So I was like, oh, I'll just, you know, I'll start an agency. And I remember the story I like to tell is just like, I was a freelancer and then I decided I was an agency. Like I was a freelancer on Friday and Monday I was an agency. And I remember telling clients, well, we're an agency now. Well, what's the difference? We're an agency now. So that was how it started. And the name Kapowza is just, it's a Simpsons joke. Like there's the marketing lady who says Bart has zip zorp Kapowza, and that's literally, that was it. That was the big business plan.
I remember that episode. I forgot that she said Kapowza, but as you were referencing that, they were in like probably like a board meeting or something with television executives.
It was the kids news episode. And
yes. Bart, the kids news. Yes.
Yeah. Bart has zip zorp Kapowza. I just love that marketing lady on The Simpsons. She just says nothing. Like she just like her feedback is just it's just hot air.
she is so perfect for representing. And I've worked in other industries where people in marketing departments, sometimes CMO, sometimes others, creative directors, sometimes are a little bit that way. So I think they sort of nailed that part in time where that was maybe more common than uncommon.
Well, also, a show like The Simpsons that has been on some 33 years, like eventually they're going to write every possible thing and every possible person and archetype in existence. So very true. That's kind of how I got to here. And, you know, it's really is a credit to the wonderful people that work at Kapowza, and the same with the Northrop folks. I mean, there's a reason they're number one. Like that's not by accident. They're very, very smart and very, very good. I just recently been working with them for a while, but having not had much personal real estate experience, I was helping a friend sell a house, and I asked Craig and the team and Ray, over there, I said, hey, who would you go with to sell this house? And they suggested a guy, and they came in and they like redid the whole house and had contractors come in and like fix the carpets and all this other stuff. And the house sold for like $100,000 more than it was supposed to. And it was like, They had like 75 showings the first weekend. They had to cut it off because it was too many people. And it was just like they sold it in a week. It was and my friend who's not easily impressed would be like, wow, they're doing something right. So yeah, there's a reason they're number one. That is certainly not a mistake.
Well, and we should also mention that because they're number one, they're getting called by every agency in the country. Let's be honest. And they have chosen you guys. And so that is a huge feather in your cap. You're clearly doing amazing work. And we should mention, for everyone listening or watching, I want you to go to kapowza.co and I want you to take a look at the Northrop work, because it is really inspiring. It is cool. It is outside the box. And it'll give you a better understanding of what some of the top agents, or in this case, the top agency, is doing to market and also to brand themselves.
That's really kind. Yeah, we've done almost 10 spots for them now over the last few years. And every time we get to do something new, we get to do something special. And it's, every year when it comes around, it's kind of one of our favorite things to work on, because of the not necessarily the scope in terms of the project, but the scope and the amount of people that see it. And so they really invest in making sure those spots get seen, which that is a huge, huge part of why they're so successful, is people know that name. And they know that brand because it's out there. And so I know when we make a commercial for them, a lot of people are going to see it and it's going to get a lot of attention. We can do other work for other brands, and it can be a good spot in and of itself. But if they don't have a good media plan, no one's going to see it. And so it's always exciting to be able to play on the big stage.
Well, let's talk about what individual agents can learn from a creative director at a top agency who works with top real estate teams. And a lot of people listening, a lot of our audience are going to be individual real estate practitioners who maybe aren't on a team, or maybe they're on a small team or they work at a small boutique firm and they're really running the entire business themselves, which includes
Yeah.
marketing arm of
Oh
it.
yeah.
And realtors, it's a tough thing to do because
I can't
realtors have,
imagine.
right, they have so many different hats they need to wear just to make money, which include, every part of a transaction, dealing with
Mhm.
the customer, but also, in marketing the home they might be trying to buy or sell, marketing that to their client, to the public. But also there's a focus that often gets lost, which is what is the brand I'm pushing out outside of a transaction? What am I projecting out into the universe of potential clients? How am I, what image and what feelings do I want associated with my brand? And how do I actually get that out there? And I would love to spend some time talking about content creation. What I love about, one of the things I love about your company is in the name itself is dynamic and fun, but it's also funny, right? So it's a Simpsons reference, which obviously is going to be pushed in the humor side. And humor, I know, is really important to you. It's also something that is noticeably absent in a lot of realtor stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So we're a firm in Chicago. We've added some humor in our recruiting efforts to try to attract more agents. And, we just, because no one else is doing it, and
Mhm.
literally nobody does it. And that's kind of who we are. We're kind of silly guys too. And that's not to say that if you're not that way, that you should try to force it in. But I'm curious on what the role of humor is in your sort of content creation.
It's really interesting you say that. So when we started working with Northrop, we were a really young agency, and we mutual friends said, hey, they were looking to do something new. They're taking pitches, and we went and had a meeting with just Craig back then, and his son Will, and we just walked them through some ideas that we had, and they really responded to a whole bunch of them. And in later it came out, there was a write-up about the ads in Adweek, and they called them like the anti-real estate commercials. And it was some calculated thing that we were like, oh, here we go, we're going to make the anti-real estate, but it was truly our ignorance, of just, that was our voice, and that was our take on the industry. And so, like, if we're going to make something, make it interesting, make it funny, make it heartfelt, make it feel something, move the audience, do something like. And so humor is, I like humor, because it's so accessible, in it's pretty universal if you strike the right tone. And advertising humor is certainly different than movie humor, and certainly different than like stand up or anything like that. But it it can cross demographics, both male and female. It can cross age. It's very shareable, very consumable. It does well on where most of the ads are run. If they're run on TV, they're run on sports, like live sports, and it's just that's a good thing to run on sports because they're usually louder and more of a spectacle. But the role of humor is, I just think that people are desperate for interesting content. They don't care where it comes from. And as a brand, you're already starting at a negative because it's like, oh, what are you selling me now? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, here comes this guy to tell me, or this woman to tell me that their real estate agency is the best, and that's why I should go with. There's a motive behind every piece of creative versus just like funny cat videos you see online. But that's what you're competing with.
Right.
You're competing with pure entertainment, and you're competing with big entertainment now with like Netflix and Hulu and Apple TV and all of these places that are just desperate for your attention and truly deserve it. There's some really great movies on Netflix, and that's what you're competing with, is the attention. And so, just realizing the playing field that you're on, people don't want to hear from you. Like, they're not looking
Right.
to hear from you. And I think that's a mistake we all make in our businesses, where because I'm in advertising and I think advertising is really interesting. Well, there's plenty of people that hate advertising and don't think it's interesting. And in your industry as well, in real estate, I'm sure there's tons of stuff about real estate and that you could just listen to all day and read books about. But how many dinner conversations do you end up talking about real estate where people are just like, okay, I get it, man, you're into it. Uh, and but I just think that I wish in every marketing department around the country, I wish there could be a sign that just says nobody cares.
Yeah, that's so true.
They don't. They really don't. And like a lot of brands, the biggest mistake I feel like they make, large or small, is they operate from this position of, oh, they're gonna be interested in this. I remember we had a client years ago that they were going through a name change, and they wanted to do a campaign about this whole name change. And I remember everyone kind of saying, no one's going to care. They're going to go, okay, they got a new name. Good for them. And that was basically what happened. And thank goodness, they didn't actually run any campaign, but it was talked about. And it was just like, that's just the view that you have because you're in it day to day and you think it's interesting. And so like, I think, for better or worse, I have a really short attention span. So I think, the realization that if I'm not going to care, who's this other person? And, you can use emotion. It doesn't always have to be humor too. You can use, we've done some great work for Northrop that is, heartfelt and I guess sappy is the best word, but heartfelt's probably the better word for it. But, you can use all these tools. And the beauty of it now is that you have no excuse with, you have tons of opportunities with a phone that you can film your own content. And I know a lot of agents do that now. A lot of the big agents at Northrop, they're great content creators. They make little videos about every listing and they're hilarious. Like, and we have nothing to do with it. I'm just, get to sit on the sidelines as a fan and be like, wow, that's good content. And they become influencers in and of themselves. And so that's just realizing the field that you're on, that you're, just because it's a commercial doesn't, and you paid for it, and you paid to be here, doesn't mean you have my attention or the right to my attention. And, thinking about your own buying practices, when a commercial comes on your phone, what are you doing? Like, or
waiting to hit the skip button in a lot of times.
Exactly. And most of and for some reason, a lot of brands can't get out of their own way to think, well, I don't want to see anyone else's commercial, but they're going to love to see ours.
Yeah. It's really a good point, because I think maybe the most accessible or one of the more accessible examples of this for our audience would be, and I'm, please understand the spirit in which I'm going to say this is, I'm going to put a big asterisk and say, I'm not saying this doesn't work. And I'm not saying people who do it are stupid. I'm just talking about how I personally respond to it as a marketing person, not as a real estate person. When I see, bench ads where it says such and such team, or where I see billboards. And again, I understand that those are maybe just there as a function to sort of remind people who see them that these people exist and they're part of this group. And it's just maybe a repetition thing. But I don't find those ads typically very compelling unless they're doing something slightly outside of what I would expect a real estate ad to look like. So what I'm curious is, because you talked about, emotional connection and how you can do that through content, and whether it's humor or whether it's vulnerability or sadness or, I find that I tend to connect the most with either things that are funny or things that move me and make me feel something intense. And it doesn't have to be a life-changing intensity, but something that makes me feel connected to, the people in the advertisement, and typically that can be done through vulnerability, or, some sort of intimacy. But I'm just curious on how, as a realtor, and I know we don't have a magic bullet solution, a one size fits all, but maybe how agents can start to think about adjusting their marketing to sort of meet more of that need. Because Dan, what you said is so right. You're competing with TikTok, which is taken over, certainly younger people's attention span, because these are quick, short, really dialed in videos about how to capture attention within a few seconds. And oftentimes they're silly, but they really do work to capture someone's attention. And I'm not suggesting that's always the way to go, but it is tough. And I'm just curious on what suggestions you have for, any of our audience to start thinking about, how do I better position my marketing?
Well, there are a couple of points. The thing you said about the bench ads and the billboards, like if you go to a baseball game, you'll usually see a Coca-Cola logo. There's nothing else. There's just a Coke logo. Yeah. And you think, I saw a tweet once that said, "Dear Coca-Cola, we're aware you exist. Thank you." But like what they're doing is they're just, it takes 7 to 8 touches for you to make a purchasing decision. And that's
Right.
just one of them. If you have the budget to do that, and you can put a bench ad, sure, why not? It could help, or a bus ad or something like that. But, dollar for dollar, you get more out of what you said, doing something interesting. And that's every human. We all connect to things that are funny or interesting to us or move us in some way. That's, every human in history has something like that. There's a reason why, we consume so much content. The reason why podcasts exist and TikTok, and I love TikTok. And I think, it's, there was a big hole when Vine left, and, I need my dose of 15 seconds of humor. But I think the biggest thing that people can do is be honest and be truthful about who they are and what they like to do. If you can't hire an agency or you're just not there yet, if you like to write, start a Twitter. If you liked a podcast to talk, start a podcast. If you like to write long form, start a blog. You got to do something. If you like to take photos, start an Instagram. It's all free. It's like that's the amazing part. 20, 30 years ago, getting all of this content out would have been impossible, but it's all free, like all of it. And the Craig Northrop himself still is posting on Facebook and making videos and content, and he's still doing it and in like him personally. And you think, man, if that guy's still doing it, then who are the rest of the agents who don't. And I think just being true of what you like Craig is a big personality and a great talker. And so he's great on video. That's his bread and butter. But me, for us, for example, I like running our Twitter. Our Twitter is silly and stupid, and I think my mom's the only fan of it. But it's what gets us out there, and people remember it. We also have a newsletter that our marketing director Sean likes to write, because that's what he likes to do. And so don't force yourself to do a video if you're not comfortable on camera. Don't force yourself to take photos if you don't like taking photos. You got to do something, but just be honest of what you like doing, and you can learn. There's no, we're going through a process. We're hiring a new designer, and just the level of proficiency of portfolios these days is stunning, just absolutely stunning, of how much further people are than I was at that point in my career. And it's because, they have access to knowledge. All of this stuff is free on YouTube. Learn what you like and what you don't like, because all creativity is just taste that we've all agreed on. And so, what Steven Spielberg likes in a movie, the average person seems to like it too. And so figure out what your taste is and do your homework on what you like and what turns you on, creatively, emotionally. And just be honest. Don't force. If you're not funny, please don't be funny. It's really painful. But maybe you're inspirational. Maybe you like giving talks, or maybe you like hosting groups. There's no excuse to not be a content creator somehow. And at this day and age, if you can't hire someone to do it, which Craig can, but he's still doing it. You know what I mean? And so. Yeah. I kind of think there's no excuse not to do something. Maybe you even, you read articles about real estate and share your thoughts about them. There's no shortage of ideas and opportunities, especially right now.
That's what you said is so important. And I hadn't really thought of it in such a wide scope, which is just to reiterate something Craig mentioned, which is to say, if social media isn't your thing, then maybe writing is. I know an agent that considers herself an introvert, very successful here in Chicago. And what she does is she doesn't really enjoy doing a lot of social media because it's outside of her, wiring, her biological and emotional wiring. So she goes, I'm just not comfortable turning the camera around and doing, a fun video, but she's a good writer. And so what she does is, and I think this is such a brilliant thing, and I'll just share it just because it came to me as Dan was speaking, that she, once a transaction closes, she writes an article about the couple
Oh,
or if it's an individual, just the person, and or if it's a family, the whole family. And she takes pictures and she writes about their life and she posts it on her website, and then she pushes that out on social media and says, hey, we just had this closing, I'd like you to learn about the so and so's, and she gets their permission, of course. And she writes this
wow.
beautiful article about them, and it's so brilliant because nobody else does that. And or to my knowledge, I don't know anyone else here locally that does. We have 44,000 realtors here. So, and guess what? Those people are super flattered, and they also share that with everyone because someone just wrote an article about them. How cool is that? And so there's a lot of different ways to do this. And maybe you're not a writer, and maybe you're not a video person. And also maybe you don't like doing Instagram stories because you like to maintain more privacy than maybe that allows. But as Dan says, pick your lane. What I would recommend, and Dan, I'd love to get your opinion on this. If you're not sure, where you want to publish your content or what kind of content you want. I know we did this recently in a nonprofit that I help with, that we reached out to our customer and we said, hey, where are you hanging out online? Where do you spend your time? We actually found that for this particular association I'm involved with, that it was LinkedIn, and we wouldn't have guessed that. We actually found that more people were on LinkedIn than they were on Facebook and Instagram. We're like, wow, that totally shocked us. So now we said, okay, well, everyone's on LinkedIn. And now we're like, okay, now we know that's where they're going to be. And now we're creating content for them. So that's something that you can do. You can survey your existing customers, your contact list, and just say, hey, I would love to get your help. I'm working on my marketing plan for this year. Can you talk a little bit about where you hang out online? And then you can start to figure out how to create that kind of content for that, distribution model.
Yeah, I think first of all, that article thing, what a great idea.
Brilliant.
And I think it's less of, so if you break that down, the idea of writing an article about the people that buy from you or you sell or you work with isn't necessarily original, but it's
No.
true. But it's true to her, and that's what makes it so good. And so people get with creativity. They think it's like magic, and they have to do something that's never been done before, and they have to do something original. And there's this paralysis they're terrified to put something out there. Because look at all the other stuff that has come before, and who am I to write or do anything? But it's not necessarily an original idea, but it's good because it's what fits her, and she keeps doing it.
Yeah.
It's the consistency. Like posting one article, I would rather have a client or a realtor post one article a week that's average versus for a year versus one brilliant thing and then never post again. Like it just doesn't work that way. It's about volume and being truthful to what you like to do. And also, where do you like to hang out online? Like, do you spend your time like I do? I spend my time. I love TikTok. I love YouTube and TikTok. So video is how I communicate or enjoy consuming. But I don't like the camera on my face. And so when we do stuff, it's usually I'm behind the camera or I'm writing. And so, I think that's brilliant. Just what she did, and just, being honest with yourself. And I hope everyone could like find their thing. That's just their thing. And everyone knows that that's what she does. And it's a great shareable piece of content that all of the people that are friends with the people that bought the house will all see. And so it's there's the big commercials, and then there's just the content that you chip away at, and they all do both. Like the big brands and the big real estate teams, they're not just betting on one marketing horse. Like they're doing Instagram, they're doing TikTok, they're doing YouTube, they're doing Facebook, they're doing Twitter, they're doing Facebook Live events. They're doing motivational quotes. They're doing videos of listings. Individual agents are doing walkthroughs. And they're doing big commercials. They're doing the billboards. They're doing everything. And so it's more about a little bit of everything at that large scale that gets the results that they're looking for. And because again, 7 to 8 touches for people to remember. And everyone in this market knows who they are. And it's because they're out there, and they just painted a whole bus in Ocean City because they're opening a bunch of offices down the beach. Ocean City's like out east,
I know it real quickly. My sister, when were in college, after her freshman year, she moved to Ocean City, Maryland for the summer
Oh, wow.
to because she saw it in the back of an advertisement that said, "Hey, students, come out here." And we went to school in Ohio, and her best friend worked in a crab shack in some sort of crab restaurant. They'd come home smelling terrible every day from well, I love crab, but when you work in it, maybe not. It's not so fun. But so I do know Ocean City. I've not been there personally, but my sister lived there for some time. So.
Yeah, they have a lot of students that come, and a lot of students from overseas. It's really cool. I don't know how the hiring process works, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of students. But yeah, they have no shortage of opportunities for you to know who they are as a brand.
Yeah.
And if you look at it as like everyone likes, like the food pyramid is like a constant thing. Like the big commercials that are running regionally on the Super Bowl that we make, and the campaigns that we work with them to make, they have an incredible marketing team that's doing everything below the tiny point of the pyramid. We're just that tiny point of the pyramid that is the key piece of content. But there are, tons of people in that organization that are working to make that stuff happen. So it's certainly not all of us. We're just the tip of the spear when it comes to the commercials and the creative, but they really keep that brand going because of the in-house team that they have.
I would love to talk about the idea of telling the story, and sort of what that means in advertising, in branding, and how agents can start to think about how to do that. And I'll give you just a quick example. Just yesterday, I was interviewing someone for our podcast who's one of the top luxury agents in the country. And we were talking about story selling, which is maybe an antiquated term, but this idea that she's now working with people who this is usually their fourth to fifth home. This is not their primary residence. These are ultra mega net worth people who have whole teams that they travel with. And it's a whole different world that I live in.
They play golf.
Yeah. And she has to serve all these different and appease all these different people. But what she said is, she goes, when I, show a home, or when I introduce a home to a possible client, I have a whole story. She goes, it's almost an act or a play in 3 acts in my mind. And she has a bit of a theater background, but she says, this is a performance. And it's an authentic performance, but she says, I really want them to understand the story of this home and how they can see themselves in it. And I want to talk about just, that's just one small micro example of story selling. But to talk about how that can be done authentically in, taking your phone, turning it around, if that's what you're comfortable with, and doing a 15-second TikTok video or a 90-second, or 60-second Instagram video where, and Dan said something else I just want to really quickly, before I forget, point is that step on this point a little bit, because it's so important, is the consistency. And whatever you decide to commit to with content creation, whether it's videos, podcasts, articles, tweets, memes, funny memes, whatever your thing is, you have to really commit to it for at least a year and do it consistently. And what Dan said is so important is, don't let perfection get in the way, because it's not really what people always need. In fact, I think most people don't care about perfection. So in other words, if the lighting isn't perfect, if you stammer a bit, as long as you're putting out quality content and you're, checking to see what kind of results you're getting, are you getting good feedback? I would say, what do they say? Perfection is the enemy of just getting things done, or I forget what the end of that expression is. But just the idea of not having things, because you work at an agency where you have, oftentimes budgets to make things look perfect, which is amazing. But the rest of us who don't have that, could we talk a little bit about why that's, yeah.
So the interesting thing is, people are willing to forgive quality if they understand the expectations. So when we put a commercial on TV, there's a certain expectation of quality, because at the beginning, before that commercial exists in their mind, and after that commercial exists in their mind, there's a set expectation that these are going to be professionally lit, professionally shot, professionally acted, directed, written, all edited, and all of those things. When you turn a cell phone camera around, the content that you're around is honest and amateur, and people expect that amateur look and feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. We actually made a commercial 2 years ago that was shot entirely on a phone. It's like one of my favorite things we've ever done is for a cancer foundation. And it was like, it was just shot on a cell phone, and I followed people around just filming on this phone, and we cut it together, and it's really powerful. And there was no expectation, because it was clear that the cell phone was part of the story. So, as long as you're honest with the audience and you're not trying to do something that is obviously not true, like for example, the Apple's ads about shot on iPhone stuff, I think are a little disingenuous because
they look perfect.
Well, they're shot on iPhone, but what's around that iPhone? like who's shooting with that iPhone? Because like if Ryan Johnson takes your iPhone and starts filming, it's going to be different than like someone else taking your iPhone and filming. But yeah, perfectionism is really an enemy, I think. And we've grown up with this feeling that creative people are meant to be auteurs, and they're meant to be, these geniuses that toil away in a cabin, and that, creative is this elusive thing, but it's more craftsmanship than it is anything else. No one asks a plumber, where do they get their ideas? Where do they, where does it come from? Like, how do you plumb? I don't think that's the right word, but you know what I mean? But
yeah.
And creativity is very similar to that. It's chipping away at an idea, and it's puzzles, it's problem solving. And, even going down to writing a commercial script, like, okay, I need to get this couple from here to here, and they need to do something in the middle that does this. And it's just craft at a certain point. It's not magic. It's not like pulled from the thin air. You're stumped for a while, and then you figure it out. Same with any other problem solving that you do. It's just, the thing that we're selling is emotion, not, correctly running pipes. And I think it's a real shame, because I think correctly running pipes are probably just as important as I look at the pipes around me. So yeah, I think people just need to get out of their own way. And it's really hard because, and this is saying, so as someone that, we have a Twitter account that I've been posting consistently on for the last 2 years, and it still doesn't have that great of an audience. But damn it, I love the content on our Twitter account, and I have fun doing it. It's really funny, it's really silly, and it's a nice creative outlet for me, and I enjoy it. And I have no idea how many people follow us, because I enjoy the creation of the content. And that's why, our Twitter account may be big one day, it may never be big, but it doesn't matter. I'll keep doing it because it's fun. And I do enjoy it. And so, again, back to that theme of what do you enjoy, and what makes you happy? Like, what turns you on?
Yeah. And I would love to just talk a little bit about discovering your brand, and just, any sort of simple suggestions for our listeners or viewers who might be thinking, gosh, I don't really have a brand. I mean, I don't know what I want. And so maybe we should just define what that is, and maybe give some suggestions about how to discover, or how to rediscover maybe even what your brand is.
Well, it's the same thing as what's a story? What's a brand? Right. Like it's a moving target of a definition. And if you ask someone that is a branding expert, they'll give you a very specific, detailed answer. But if you ask someone in a supermarket store, they'll point to the cereal box and say, well, Captain Crunch, that's a brand.
Sure.
And the crazy part is they're both right. A brand is basically, is your personality. And we all have a brand, whether we like it or not. And when we come into a room, how we're dressed, how we talk, how we think, how we communicate, and more importantly, who we're communicating to in that room is all our brand. And so your companies are doing the same thing, just on a different kind of more disconnected scale. It's not one room, it's dozens of rooms. It's not one person, it's dozens of people. And, thinking about the person you had on yesterday, she is selling to very high net worth individuals. They're buying their fourth or fifth house. And that right there, we can already picture the brand. We already have an idea in our head that it's very white glove, very buttoned up. And this is disposable income purchases here. This is not a starter home. And it's a different experience than someone buying their first home in, Calgary, Michigan. And so, the who you're talking to is a big part of your brand, that you already have it or already. That and how people think of you is a big part of that. And I think, there's a lot of exercises you can do, but one of my favorites is to just on a whiteboard list every single word that you think of when you describe your company. Every single word, and a lot of them will be redundant. You may say smart, intelligent, crafty, creative, and you could all start grouping those things together. And eventually what you'll do is you say you have like 50 words, and you'll find that there's like 3 themes, like you're saying the same thing over and over again. Highlight those themes, and that's usually close to what you think your brand is. Now the trick is if you do the same thing with employees, team members, or partners or customers, and if that doesn't line up, you have a miscommunication of what you think your brand is versus what your brand actually is. And that's almost always the case. How we view ourselves is very different than how other people view us. Oh, I'm too fat. I'm too short. I'm too, my voice is nasally. Like but people, will meet you and say, I don't think you're fat. I don't think you have a nasally voice. So your perception of your brand is very similar to how your perception is as a person. And so the easy thing, is to ask, how are we, and to really look, how are we viewed in the market? And I think that is the benefit of hiring an agency, is the outside perspective, because it's really easy for us to look at you, look at a brand and go, okay, well, they're selling to luxury homes. Look, what are other luxury home people doing? Okay, this is how they fit in. They're the more accessible. Okay, they're selling to Silicon Valley people. So these are, $500 jeans people, not Armani suit people. And that's a different kind of brand. And, maybe this realtor drives a Tesla instead of a Bentley because it's more eco-friendly, because you just go down this rabbit hole of who they're talking to and what they need to say. And so just being, again, it comes back to honesty. All good advertising and all good creative work is honest. And we as humans have a really, really good lie detector for when someone's being inauthentic. So when something like pop music, if it feels too polished, you'll like it up to a certain age, and then you get a little older and you're like, I can hear the auto tune in that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something you enjoy, and that's something you're willing to prioritize another honesty in that work. But there's a reason why acoustic albums are always, are still a thing. They're still popular, because we like the honesty. And that's what's a great thing about a phone, is that a commercial made on a cell phone looks more honest, because it's made in a more humble way. Because we are such consumers of content, and especially video, and just compared to, when I was a kid, there was AOL, and that was about it. And there was TV, and then you went to the movie theaters. But now I'm probably watching 8 hours of video a day in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And just the absolute, the advancement of the audience because of that constant barrage of content. You just have to be at a higher level, and honesty is the first place to start.
And that goes a lot to, and I don't want to say anything controversial or to upset anyone, but
why not?
Realtors historically have been very concerned about their physical appearance in advertising, and certainly not to suggest that physical appearance isn't important. Of course it is, but there is seemed to be an overly concerned effort to appear perfect. We all can joke about and know realtors who, have their photo that they're using as their headshot, and it's 20 years old. I think we're to a point now, because of social media, in particular, the accessibility of video and how easy it is to create, that I think people are, I would guess, this is just a guess, but I would think people are respond a lot less to perfection and a lot more to authenticity. I mean, I think that's kind of an obvious thing to say, but what I'm really saying is, that this polished look, I think, is more of an outmoded idea for small brands. Maybe for bigger brands, it's more important. I don't know, but certainly as an individual, the individual person walking around doesn't relate to perfection. We relate to it's the Oliver Cromwell warts and all. We relate to imperfection. you
Well,
know, we,
vulnerability is what
yeah,
we relate to. And I would say it depends. There are no hard and fast rules. Like, if your brand is perfection, and, there's some great brands that are known for their perfectionism, Apple among them, like
sure.
but you're talking about small things. I always like to say that, with anything, there's always an outlier. There's always something you could bring up that disproves the theory.
Sure.
So the idea that videos need to be 7 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds. I've seen 7-minute commercials that get crazy views and blow everyone's mind. And it's because it's good. And that's all people really care for, is that it's good. So if your brand is being a perfectionist, then, that's you, be honest. But and you can have a lot of fun with that perfectionism. But you're right. Like the vulnerability, I would say, the honesty, the being a real person. Like, what do you like when you meet a person? Like, do they speak from the heart? Are they rude? Are they nice? It's the same with brands. So, like, the role of any kind of creative agency is just to dull the edge. A bank is not a it's not something we would think of as heartfelt. We wouldn't think as a bank is huggable. It's kind of like hugging a steel ball. But there's some bank commercials that'll bring you to tears, and that's by design, because you need a kind of a rubber coating on that steel ball to keep the wheels of commerce going. I asked a boss I had years ago, when I was first getting into the industry, I was like, what are we doing here? Like, all of this work, what is the point? And it's just like I slowly realized that it's kind of like the grease of the gears, because if you take any kind of company, down to the heart of what a real estate transaction is, it's paperwork. It's laws, and it's paperwork, and it's not, and sure, there's a side of it that is romantic. But if none of our ads, mention any kind of, closing process or anything like that. It's all about like, hey, look at the life that you could possibly have. And so most good work is about, you're selling an ideal, you're selling a dream. I saw a billboard once about retirement, and it was just this old couple sitting on a porch, like a stoop of a porch, drinking coffee, and they were retired. And I think about that ad like once a month. It was nothing. It might have been a stock photo, but it just resonated with me. It was like, man, I want a porch and coffee and sitting. Like, that sounds nice. And so it's all selling some kind of ideal. And I think that, the way that most brands present themselves, is just the ideal that we wish that we wish for ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back to branding for a second, Dan was giving the exercise about listing all of the sort of characteristics that you think that you think you are able to deliver on with your customers, and feelings and experiences. And then Dan also mentioned, well, gosh, we're almost too close to ourselves to know the objective sort of third party view, which is how do other people view us? And we may be right, we may not be accurate. So you need to find out. And I think one way to do that, just as a quick little tip, Dan, maybe you have an additional suggestion, or maybe this is a decent one, but it is to send anonymous surveys to your customers and say, hey, I was in the process of going through a branding exercise, and here are sort of the words that I want associated with my brand, but I want to make sure that my customers or my clients feel that this is authentic to me. And if it isn't, I really need to know that. And you can do it, from an anonymous perspective, where they're not giving their personal information. They can, feel the need to be more honest about it. But I would think that might help marry some of what we think and what, the public thinks about us.
Yeah. I mean, that is the basis of any good marketing strategists. That's where they start, is surveys. And any kind of strategy is usually built upon that. And I think we're all terrified to do that as business owners, because, we've never sent out a survey, because it's like, oh gosh, what are we going to hear? You know what I mean? Like, we get testimonials through this site called Clutch, which is really interesting because they're like curating testimonials, and it's interesting to see what people say and what people value. But yeah, I mean, look, the hardest thing, I remember my first commercial I was directing, it was, well, it was like the second or third, but the first like real one. And, you go through the script, and it's 3 or 4 drafts of the script. And then you go through casting, and then shot lists, and then you got the shoot day, and there's multiple takes there. Then you have the edit, then you have post-production. And at that point, you don't even know what's funny anymore.
Right. Right.
And
you're too close to it.
Yeah. And the client might not know either, because, we've all heard the punchline 30,000 times that flames come out of the sink. And it's like, is that even funny anymore? And it's really hard, because you have to try and disassociate yourself as best as you can to put yourself in the eyes of someone seeing this for the first time. And that's a real skill. I was bad at it. I have to develop it. But having good, honest friends in the industry, and then friends outside of the industry, every single commercial that we make gets sent to about 5 to 10 friends and colleagues for different kinds of notes. Like, I know if I send a commercial to a filmmaker friend, he will say, this looks good, but the color correction is off between 10 seconds and 15 seconds. If I send it to a business person, a business friend, they'll say, cool, but what are they selling here? And you just, it's about getting good feedback, and that's where good creative comes from. It's the really important thing is it's not magic, it's structure and feedback. And it's actually, more boring than the Italian villa where you're writing, the great American novel. It's structure and feedback. And so if you can have some honest friends, and, honest that, you say, look, I want to know if, my pants are down in public. Like, that's always my biggest fear. Like, every artist in the history of artists, and I wouldn't go so far as to call us artists. I think it's probably a little pretentious, but the idea of someone that makes creative stuff all has something on their record that it was just a miss. And was it a miss because they didn't care, or was it a miss because they just didn't their taste didn't line up with what everyone was going to like? And good friends, and friends that are inside industries and outside industries, the best feedback can come from, someone totally outside of the demographic you're going for. Because it's really interesting to see what they think and what they point out. And so we do the same thing with work. So we get feedback as much as we can. Like, it's really, really important. And especially for something, millions of people are going to see this thing, my goodness, like, what if something is offensive? And comedy's tough. And you have to ride this line of, like, will there be something that, blindside that you totally didn't see coming? Fortunately, we've never had that happen because we get a lot of people looking at scripts, a lot of very aware people within the agency. We're also, I think the thing that makes me most proud of the agency is that we're very diverse. And I think that's important for both ideas and, those blind sides. And so, yeah, do the same thing with your brand. If it's not a survey, take a friend to lunch that is in the industry, or someone that has used your services, and, how do you see us? And let's let them talk. People love to talk. And so, like I'm doing here.
They also love to be helpful too, especially if they like you. And so assembling this council of people that can give you honest feedback, as Dan was suggesting, is so important. And then you have to be willing to turn your will over to at least receive their feedback and understand that many things are misses. And as you create this content, there may be as many misses as there are hits. You might find somebody might say, this just isn't good enough, and here's what I would do to make it better. And that's okay. I mean, gosh, everyone learns from experience. Experience usually comes from making bad decisions, also good decisions too. But I learn a lot more from the mistakes I've made. So assemble a council. That's really important. And if you're unwilling, if that's too scary for you to do face-to-face, then do it anonymously. Send it out to your clients and say, I don't want you to feel that you have to tell me, what I want to hear. Just here's what I'm thinking of. Here's a particular direction I want to go. Do you think that fits? Does that fit with your experience of me? And then you can adjust from there. And it's funny that as you were saying that, I realized we're in the process of rebuilding our recruiting website for recruiting realtors to join our firm. And even though we have 750 realtors here.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling with this brand idea. You would think by now I would know what is our brand and I had to go to my owner and I said, well, here's the 7 words I want associated. And he goes, no, only really 4 of those work. And I said, well, I don't know. I think 7. At first I had 30. And I said, let's do all 30. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? Just to have 30 different things and we could do something neat with that. He goes, no, it's too much. People will get confused. And I was a little disheartened because I'd put all this work into it, but it was a miss. It was just wrong. It was the wrong approach. And he says, we're going to narrow it down to these 4. And it was training, support, family, because we're a family-owned business, and fun. And I said, that's it. Those are the 4. And I would have, as a creative person, I would have loved to do all 30. And I had a really cool idea, but it wasn't really the right idea. So I have a counsel as well. You should also do the same. And, once you narrow down what those experiences or those words you want associated with your brand, well, then that gives you such good direction. And it really, as Dan was saying, it really probably doesn't matter as much what the distribution model is. In other words, how are you getting that content out there? There's a million ways to do it. And whatever fits with your sort of personality is what you can go with. But I would say do that before you do anything else. Otherwise, what I did for the first many, many years here at our company is I just tried a whole bunch of stuff without testing it and threw it against the wall. And thankfully, none of it, torpedoed our company, but a lot of it just was a bad idea that I didn't ask other people about ahead of time. And it would have saved me a lot of headache over the years. So that's such a great suggestion. And I also want to mention too, that Kapowza, Dan's company, they are looking to always expand their business. And if, they work with the top team in the country now, and we interview top realtors. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that if you are a brand, whether you're a real estate, an individual or a team or a brokerage, and you want to really take your branding and marketing to the next level, check out Kapowza, look at their work. If that seems to fit with what you want for the vision of your company, and they're award-winning agency. They certainly have a lot of cool accolades, and they will take great care of you. But if you're interested in learning more about them, please go to their website. Just take a look at the content they've created for other clients, which is kapowza.co, which is KAPOWZA.co. And Dan, do you mind sharing your email in case anyone wants to reach out to you directly?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just dan@kapowza.co. Please reach out. I'd be happy to, this stuff is really interesting. It's fun to talk and it's fun to brainstorm, and it's fun to help people. If anyone wants to reach out, there's also, if you want to join the literally dozens following us on Twitter, it's Kapowza Co is the Twitter. I think my mom's the only one that actually follows that. But
I will tell you just a funny Twitter story as we wrap up, only because this will make you feel a lot better. So years ago, prior to me getting into real estate, I would just write jokes on Twitter, and they were my own jokes. I wasn't appropriating them, which I have always a big issue with. I see on Instagram, everyone just steals everyone else's quotes and content, and
because it's easier.
Boy. It's way much easier. And I just personally, I don't like that. Whatever, people can do whatever they want. But I never did that. And I was able, and this is kind of going to sound like I'm bragging, but the reason I'm saying it is absolutely not a brag. So I amassed a pretty large Twitter following, or at least I thought it was large. I had about 30,000 Twitter followers, which sounds amazing. And just so that, everyone understands, it really did nothing for me as far from a business perspective. Maybe I didn't learn how to monetize it or use it to my advantage to get other opportunities. But I would have, a lot of good feedback, which was nice. But certainly, and now I don't post it all on Twitter, and not because I'm like, oh, well, I don't need to do that anymore. I just stopped being able to come up with the great jokes. But what I will tell you is, whether it's dozens or in my case, I had a lot more. The reality of it is it's still always hard to get noticed. I kind of maybe got lucky because I got some people who tweeted out things that I had tweeted. And so I got a lot of attention that way. It wasn't just like I struck gold. But it took 7 years to get to that point. So it was a 7-year process. I wish it would have happened overnight, but it didn't. But the point is, whatever you want to do, and by the way, again, once I got 130,000 Twitter followers, I realized, I was like, this doesn't really do anything for me personally. For other brands, that would be amazing. For me, I was like, I guess it did. It felt good, but then I realized it didn't. I was like, wow, I'm really great at things that don't make money. Isn't that awesome? Devoted my life to something that doesn't make me a penny.
You sound like a musician.
Yeah, well, I do play guitar as well. That for the last 30 years, that hasn't made me a penny either.
Me too.
But
Me too.
But it is fun to do, and I think that if you can have fun with your branding and do something that's authentic to you, and think of it more, in line with, am I meeting my customers' needs? Am I giving them what they want? Am I being true to myself? Then you really can't lose. Whether you have a few people that follow you on Instagram or thousands and thousands. As long as it's authentic and fun, people will the people who you want to work with will probably connect to that. And we could spend a whole nother hour talking about how do you get in front of those people? How do you get those eyeballs or ears to see or listen? But for now, just focus on the content. Try to think about something fun that is exciting for you, and just push it out. And I would just say, commit to whatever you want to do, at least for a year, doing it regularly, and see what happens.
Well, and the reality is you're going to keep doing it, whether somebody's listening or not, because you enjoy it. Yeah. And so, I'm on year 1 of the Twitter account. And so we haven't had that, but Ad Age followed us, which I thought was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's like 200. I just looked, it's like 200 and some people, but I enjoy it. And I hope eventually to get to that 100 and some thousand, but I'm not waking up every day going, okay, how do I get my Twitter account to 100 and some thousand?
Right.
I just like, oh, this is funny. I should post about this. Oh, this is funny. And it's just, you'll keep doing it because you like it. And it's the same with being a real estate agent, not to, keep going back and name dropping Craig, but he really likes it. Like, he probably doesn't have to, I don't know much about him personally, but he probably doesn't have to sell homes anymore. Like that agency is big enough. He could probably spend his time, but you call Northrop Realty, he'll pick up the phone and he's your real estate agent. Like he still really gets a kick out of it. Like Saturday morning, he is selling homes. Yeah. And like he could spend he could fly to Beverly Hills and just play tennis all day, but he still really likes it. And that's why he's been so successful. And I guess it's the same for us. We just really like doing this. Like it's really fun, writing and trying to figure out funny things to do with brands or heartfelt things and telling stories and working with people. It's just really fun. And it's just what gets us up in the morning.
I love it. Well, you have given us such amazing value today, and what a great conversation. I'm a marketing person, so this is what I love to talk about, and I appreciate talking to someone who's outside of the works within the real estate industry, but also other industries, and just providing our audience with some suggestions. And so you have done that in spades, and we are super grateful for you to have come on today. So on behalf of the listeners and viewers, we want to thank Dan and the Kapowza team for taking time out of their incredibly busy day to spend time with us on the show and provide our audience with some good ideas. And on behalf of Dan and myself, we want to also thank the audience for tuning in, for listening right now. We could not do this or would not do this without you. So we certainly appreciate it. And all we ask that if you want to, support us, actually, first, if you want to support Dan, please go visit kapowza.com, take a look at their creative, see if it's something that fits with what you're looking for, and reach out. They're super accessible, and we'll always be able to give you some good ideas. And then if you want to support our show, the easiest way to do that is just tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could benefit from watching or listening to our podcast, this particular great conversation about branding with Dan, and send them a link to our website. If they're not a podcast person, they don't have to be. They just can go to keepingitrealpod.com. Every episode we've ever done is streamable right from the site. It's super easy to navigate, or at least I hope it is. I built it. I hope it's easy. But either way, they don't have to, download a podcast app. But if they are a podcast person, then just have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, and ask them to hit the subscribe button so they can get this content. Thanks, Dan, so much. Really appreciate your time today. And we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks so much for having me.